horrible head. Okay, so now we go live to Facebook, Jane.
Yes. And you
Okay.
can keep talking about that, but let's go live to Facebook first.
Yes. Well, I was just going to say, Annie, that he's the worst sick person ever. So whenever he gets sick, I'm like, oh no, because he only wants me and he doesn't have awesome sick hygiene. So I'm like a sitting duck. And then couple that with the last 2 weeks have been really crazy for Jane and I. And even though we teach on this and we know better, we both end up sometimes working really long days and not having great margin. And it was the perfect storm between that and then him being sick. And my immune system was like, oh, so you want to play.
Kelly, time out for 1 second.
Yeah.
I actually want to just let you know that that setting for keeping things on there is not on that Facebook.
Okay, we can
Right.
probably work around that by having the document linked to our YouTube storage.
Yeah, we'll just do that.
We'll be fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we're ready to go live if everybody's ready to go live.
I am ready. As ready as I'm going to be trying to juggle like 4 windows.
You're doing great.
Thank you. Fake it till you make it, right, Annie?
That's right.
Okay, let's see if I get the notification that we're going live.
It should be setting up. It's setting up right now.
Okay. It's all a learning process, right? If we're outside our comfort zone, that means we're growing, and growing is good.
Yes, we're live. I can see it.
Okay, I haven't got a notification yet. Let's see. And there we are. So let me just get this so I can try to see the chat.
Okay, how exciting. Welcome to the conversation, Marsha. It's good to have you.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to monitor the chat, but I have it on live chat and
I can see the chat, Kelly. So if we need to monitor, I can monitor.
Okay, awesome.
All right. Welcome, everybody.
We'll just wait a couple minutes so everybody has time to jump on if they're going to jump on, and then we'll get started. I have to say, though, I'm so excited about this change in format, and Jane and I were actually just testing out all the tech side of it, and we were talking about how this just feels like such a better way to cultivate community and support you guys where you're at, and we're just really excited for this interactive type of dynamic.
Yes. Amen to that. I was a little resistant in the beginning, just a tad, right, Kelly?
Just
a little bit. Because going off script is a little bit like nerve-wracking. So bear with us as we work through what we're doing, and just doing this, just have a little grace as we work through the changes that we're making. But I know that this format's better. It's already better.
Yes. And going off script for me is kind of how I roll. I'm just always
I plant in neat rows, and Kelly just kind of scatters seed in the garden. So
and I'm like, look at the harvest. It's wonderful. All right. So do you want to go ahead and jump in?
I think we could get started.
All right. So good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited to be talking about blood sugar today. If you have any questions or comments that come up for you.
I apologize. My rolly mouse got the better of me.
That's okay. If you have any questions or comments that come up for you, go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll spend some time at the end going through and answering them. This is going to be a really interactive teaching, so we're going to have lots of moments where we kind of pause and go a little bit slower, so you have time to think and respond in the chat, so that this can be something that's beneficial for you instead of us just pouring out information at you. Now, if you aren't joining us live on this and you're watching the recording, please still go ahead and put your questions and comments in the chat. We're going to be monitoring this, so we'll go back and we'll answer them as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining us for our first live teaching on balanced blood sugars. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Jane.
And we own and run Abundant Life Nutrition and Wellness Center located here locally in Mesa, Arizona. But we actually have the privilege of working with clients from all over the place.
So we get tons and tons of questions on blood sugar management, and we actually get a lot of questions about just health symptoms in general that people don't realize is blood sugar management issues, and then we get to have a chat with them about that. But we work with a lot of our clients on re-regulating and balancing their blood sugar, and blood sugar regulation will make or break your health and wellness. So today we're just going to talk about why this needs to be on your radar. We're going to talk about how it affects you, and then how you can get the upper hand in your blood sugar management.
So just about everybody that we work with has some type of blood sugar dysregulation that's contributing to the symptoms and the issues that they are dealing with. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, how does this affect me? According to the CDC, 37.3 million Americans now have diabetes. That's 1 in 10 Americans. And of those people, 1 in 5 people don't even know that they have diabetes. That's terrifying. 96 million adults now in America are pre-diabetic. That's more than 1 in 3 Americans. More than 8 out of 10 of those people, they're pre-diabetic and they don't even know that they are. That's a lot of people that just don't have it on their radar. In fact, in 2019 alone, 1.4 million new cases of diabetes were diagnosed. So my question to you is this, honestly, how do you feel you do in terms of blood sugar management? Sit in that for a moment and really think about it. Be honest with yourself. We are fantastic at minimizing the degree of our struggles until it's too late. So let me ask you again. Honestly, how do you feel that you do in terms of blood sugar management? And if you would like to, go ahead and put your response in the chat.
The reality is that we as Americans are out of control when it comes to consuming sugar. And as a result, we're damaging our blood sugar regulation and we're destroying our bodies. This is a big problem, and we are not as dialed into it as we need to be. We don't know how much we should consume versus how much we actually consume. And the truth is that most Americans consume at least 100 pounds of sugars a year, and that can be up to 300 pounds per year when we start including our artificial sweeteners as well. Now, you might think, how in the world do people eat that much sugar? Well, if you're reaching for processed and packaged foods, it's way easier than you think. You can usually figure out how much sugar there is by looking at the nutrition label. The catch is that you have to be really mindful and intentional and pay attention to the added sugars and the ingredients that are inside that processed food. So there are 4 grams of sugar in every teaspoon. So if you see that a serving of food contains 4 grams of sugar, you know it has 1 teaspoon of sugar in it. And you also need to pay attention to the serving size that's on the back of the package. This is often seen, for me, I see this the most on like those little juice drinks that you get at the store. There's 16 ounces in the bottle. And you look at the ingredients on the side and the label, and it says there's 8 grams of added sugars in 1 serving. But if you look at the top of the label, it actually says there are 2 servings in that bottle. So consuming the whole bottle would give you 16 grams of added sugar. So we just have to be really mindful about our serving sizes as well as the amount of added sugars. So let's take a look at a couple. Go ahead, Kelly.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So I want us to look at some of the common foods. This would have been very normal for my diet before we started changing things, just being honest and upfront. So the first one is a Coca-Cola. That has 39 grams of added sugars in it, which is 9 3/4 teaspoons. Yoplait yogurt has a Snickers bar has 30 grams of added sugars, which is 7.5 teaspoons. A Yoplait yogurt, and this is the strawberry banana one, that one has 18 grams of added sugars, which is 4.5 teaspoons.
You know, that used to be one of my favorite treats to give the kiddos. I would buy the strawberry banana Go-Gurts and I would freeze it so I could pack it in their lunch and think, that I was giving them something healthy and nutritious as part of their school lunch, and I was just dumping sugar into their little teeny tiny baby bodies.
Yes. And, you know, I've got the Oreo cookies up there now. They're the next one that's up there. And it's no wonder, really, truly, when I look back on it, that I dealt with so much anxiety and depression when I think about how I used to eat. But I was not a 2 Oreo girl a day. Like if I started a pack of Oreos, then I had to finish the pack of Oreos, and I would buy the big bulk box from Costco, and it had like the 6 or 8 stacks of Oreos in there. And I would sit down and I would get started. I would get through a stack. I would eat a stack of Oreos with a glass of milk. There's 13 grams of added sugars in just 2 of the cookies, which is 3 1/4 teaspoons.
I didn't even know Costco had the bulk Oreos. My downfall was always the pints of ice cream. I would always look at it and laugh, and I'd be like, 4 servings, my butt. I'm like, that's like maybe 2. It's like me and Corey splitting it with like so much sugar. Terrible.
So much sugar. Yes. All right. There we go. 11 grams of added sugars in granola bars. We think about granola bars as another one of those things that's kind of labeled as a healthy food, but it really isn't. It's just kind of like a candy bar. And 2 3/4 teaspoons of sugar in that. And then we can get this one to pop up. 3 grams of added sugars in a 1/2 cup of pasta sauce. So sugar is everywhere. It's hidden in so many things, from our condiments and healthy sauces to just the candy bars and the amount of soda and those kinds of things that we consume. So let's just take a few minutes and reflect on what you've consumed in the last 24 hours. How much more sugar have you consumed than you were aware of? Go ahead and comment in the chat if you'd like to let us know which are the things that you lean into that are really probably very full of sugar.
So think about what you just heard about sugar. Think about the things you might be reaching for daily that are filled with it. For optimal health, we should be eating no more than 8 to 12 grams of refined sugar per day, depending on your body. Now, we're talking about refined sugar and not naturally occurring sugars in foods. Remember that 1 teaspoon equals 4 grams. So that means you should be eating no more than 2 to 3 teaspoons of refined sugar per day. Now, most of us would never sit down and just eat 3 teaspoons of sugar, because we intuitively know that would be disgusting and horrible for our body. But many people are blowing through their daily amount of sugar in just one meal, or even with just one snack or one treat. So let's think about this in concrete terms. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread comes in at 20 grams of sugar. Like Jane just said, a Coke has 39 grams of sugar. And no, diet is not better. It's just a different kind of bad. Now, Halloween was just a few weeks ago. Let's say conservatively that a fun-sized Snickers equals about 9 grams of sugar. It sounds pretty good considering that a regular-sized Snicker has 27 grams, right? Unfortunately, we don't eat just one, do we? Because the psychology of it is, it's a little one, I can have more, but you really can't. So if you are having just a little bit of sugar, it's so addictive, you end up wanting more. Now, I did a video following Halloween talking about how I hardly ate any candy, which was a huge win for me because I just didn't feel like having any of it. I've come a long way in my food relationship and my gut health. I literally ate 3 peanut butter cups over the course of the entire evening. Sounds great, but it's still 31.5 grams of sugar. That's a lot. Now, does this mean that we never eat sugar? Nope, that's not realistic at all. And it actually would make me feel a little bit sad on the inside if I never had sugar again. It just really ends in a state of deprivation and a broken food relationship. And I spent decades of my life with a broken food relationship. And most women have a broken food relationship, if we're honest. You know your food relationship is broken when you obsess over what you can have, and more importantly, what you can't, or when you fall into a cycle of depriving yourself and then binging. So then what does this actually mean? It means we realize that sugar is an occasional treat. And when we do it better. And we'll get into that in just a bit.
We talk to so many people that feel awful, but say that they think that their blood sugar isn't an issue for them. Most people really aren't familiar with blood sugar dysregulation symptoms. In fact, I had a client in my office the other day who was struggling with some very clear blood sugar dysregulation problems. The doctor told her, you need to go and see a nutritionist to get some help with this. So we knew that that was the underlying problem. And the doctor told her that all the health concerns she had were related to her blood sugar dysregulation problems. So she was not convinced of that at all. She wanted some medication to help. She said, the doctor can't see anything except this blood sugar dysregulation problem. You know, there are other things going on. But she had gone a couple of weeks between seeing the doctor and seeing me. And I asked her, I said, well, what changes have you made? Well, she started cutting some of the sugars. And I said, and how are you feeling? And she said, better. Because the truth is that all of the problems that she was struggling with, a huge chunk of them were to do with blood sugar dysregulation. So what are some of the symptoms that we can see when that's going on? They look like fatigue or frequent urination, waking up at night to pee, being very thirsty and having headaches, nausea, vomiting, confusion, or recurrent infections and slow healing sores, even dental issues or tingling in the hands and feet as neuropathy sets in, changes in appetite, dry mouth, warm, dry skin. And I would add to this list as well, anxiety and depression. They are the symptoms of an anxiety attack are almost identical to the symptoms of low blood sugar. So when we can get blood sugar balanced out, it helps with those things an awful lot. Kelly, you wanted to tell us a little bit about autumn.
Oh, for sure. And also I want to add to that list too, cholesterol. How many times do we work with people that they come see us because their doctor says their cholesterol's out of control. They're now on cholesterol medicine and they don't really want to be. They don't understand how it was fine for so long and now cholesterol is an issue. Blood sugar dysregulation drives up your cholesterol. So if you're having a cholesterol issue, it could very well just be a symptom of blood sugar dysregulation, and you taking a cholesterol medication is not going to affect or change or help the actual dysfunction in your body. It's going to suppress your cholesterol while the blood sugar dysregulation continues, and then you're going to end up with a whole set of additional problems. We also see this with insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. These things are symptoms of blood sugar dysregulation. You cannot just address cholesterol or insulin sensitivity or insulin resistance or metabolic syndrome and not address blood sugar dysregulation, because you're going to be scooping buckets of water out of a sinking ship. You're not getting to the real issue. And my daughter is a great example of this. So she deals with a lot of blood sugar dysregulation. Historically, she wakes up with no appetite. Sometimes she actually wakes up nauseous. She gets very dizzy. Sometimes she starts to pass out if she changes positions too quickly, like from crouching down, loving on the dogs, to standing up, or even from seated to standing. She'll get dizzy. She has a ton of hormone imbalance. She's been diagnosed with PCOS, has a little bit of a pooch on her belly, even though her legs and her torso and her limbs are very, very thin. She was convinced that this is just the way her body was. And she believed that it meant her body preferred fasting because she felt like food was the worst thing she could do in the morning. And this is something that's actually really common. Jane and I have a lot of conversations with people, and they have very similar circumstances. In reality, what was going on with my daughter was low blood sugar, and fasting was actually the worst thing that she could have been doing. Now, I've gone toe to toe with clients, and in truth, I went toe to toe with my daughter. Basically, prove me wrong. Start doing what I tell you to do. And if you don't feel better, then we'll have another discussion. But it's kind of a loaded question because I always know they're going to feel better because that's how blood sugar dysregulation works. So we started reframing breakfast to be about setting her body up for success and stabilizing her blood sugar through diet. She wakes up ready to eat, even if it's not appetite driven, because she has seen and felt the benefits of starting her day with a protein-rich meal. If she's nauseous, she now knows it means her body needs food now. If she starts to feel dizzy, she immediately thinks, when was the last time I ate? And then she refeeds her body. And when we're talking about refeeding, we're talking about nutrient-dense protein, fiber, fat. what ended up happening was she became more stable. Her hormones started balancing more. Her sleep improved. Her mood stability improved. Her anxiety, depression are much less. She is much less suicidal in her thoughts than she has been for the past 9 years. She still has days where she doesn't feel like being alive. But now the response is, I need to put something in my body. And then she'll ask me, hey, which supplement helps me with that? And we have her on amino acid therapies. It's a whole thing. It's brilliant. If you guys are struggling with mental health, just a side note, Jane is brilliant in that area. Coming back to blood sugar, I want you to listen to what we've said about the symptoms and what I've shared about my daughter. Start thinking about how you feel when you wake up throughout the day. Think about how blood sugar balance may be playing into how you're feeling. And then go ahead and share any observations or revelations that you've had in the chat. So how do we get the upper hand when it comes to balancing our blood sugars? It's really simple. You want to choose whole foods instead of processed ones. You want to use better sweeteners. You have to fix your sleep, and you need to fix your gut.
We are always working with people to help them lean into organic, whole foods. Well, why would we be so down on processed foods? Part of the problem is that sugar is hidden everywhere inside those processed foods. There are over 50 different names for different types of sugars. And sugar is in almost all processed foods in one form or another. Some of the names that you might see are things like fructose or high fructose corn syrup. If it says on the side now, no high fructose corn syrup, flip it over. If it says corn syrup solids, it's basically high fructose corn syrup that's been dehydrated and added in anyway. Clever advertising lingo. I saw one the other day that said plant-based mashed potatoes. And I just rolled my eyes because a potato is a plant. Okay. So just watch out for the marketing lingo.
Yeah. As a side note, real quick, in addition to processed foods, don't eat frankenfoods.
Yes.
Don't eat foods that are just a mishmash of weird things that your body doesn't know what to do with.
Yes, for sure. All right, so we got high fructose, we got dextrin, maltodextrin, dextrose, agave, beet sugar, malt syrup, brown rice syrup, cane sugar, evaporated cane juice, honey, maltose, rice syrup. All of these things are added sugars and more besides. And then we have our artificial sweeteners that we want to watch out for. Things like Splenda, NutraSweet, Equal, Sweet and Low, Sucralose, they're carcinogenic. Your body doesn't really know how to process them. There have been studies done to show that some of them like eat holes in the rats' brains when they studied them looking at the animal model. And I know that's not human beings, but if it's eating holes in their brain, I don't really want to take the risk and be the experiment and figure out whether or not it eats holes in my brain. And then we also know that it has they have the longest list of side effects for a food additive that is marked generally regarded as safe, including things like dizziness and risk of falls and muscle cramping and memory loss. And when I used to work with my seniors at the retirement community, I would talk to them all the time because those were already things they were dealing with in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. So why would you put foods inside your body that exacerbate those symptoms? And the number of people that I've spoken to that said, oh yeah, I had all kinds of problems with all these health symptoms. And I finally put 2 and 2 together and stopped drinking diet soda, and the symptoms went away. There's a real true correlation between artificial sweeteners, and we'll talk about the safe ones in a few minutes. Then we have our alcohol sugars like erythritol, xylitol, sorbitol, all the other things ending in itol. We know they cause digestive distress, that they can kill off some of the beneficial bacteria inside your digestive tract, which we don't want to do. And take it from one who knows, they really can trigger terrible IBS symptoms, especially if you have any inkling or leaning that direction. They can really trigger some bad IBS problems. And then agave syrup. For a season, we went there through this. Agave is the next best thing because it doesn't raise blood sugar. It's got a very low glycemic index, but it still generates an insulin response. And it's basically just a high fructose. It's really high in fructose. So it's a high fructose syrup that raises your blood pressure and can potentially then damage your kidneys. So not to mention also, on top of all of those things, if that weren't enough, sugar is highly addictive. It will light up your brain like crack cocaine, and it drives up systemic inflammation inside your body. It tastes good, but all it does is work against you. Simple sugars like those in refined grains, white rice, white potatoes, candy, sugar, soda, and processed foods cause your blood sugar to rise and fall very, very suddenly. These are known as high glycemic foods. Most vegetables, fruits, and whole grains are either moderate or low on the glycemic index. Sometimes our clients feel really overwhelmed when they think about taking out processed foods and when they think about preparing a blood sugar friendly meal, but it really does not have to be difficult. So a balanced sugars on your dinner plate looks like beginning with protein. I'm known for a couple of things in this office. One of them is chew your food, but the other one that I'm known for is protein. You need protein. You need 20 to 30 grams minimum of protein with your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you need about 10 grams of protein in between your meals as well. That does not all have to be meat-based proteins. It can be plant-based proteins as well, although a meat-based protein is got all of the amino acids in it that you need, and they're the easiest way to get it into your body. And I am aware that as you get older, sometimes kidney function is compromised, and doctors have advised against having high meat protein diets. So again, we're giving out general information at the moment. I just want to make sure that if the doctor has told you to do something different, then either have a conversation with us before you go making major changes like those, because you do have to be careful. And we understand that. These are broad general principles. The second thing is choosing 4 to 5 cups of low carbohydrate vegetables that can add to your proteins during the day. And those would be the things that are they're not very sugary. Things like zucchini or asparagus or broccoli or cauliflower. Then you want to add in 1 to 2 tablespoons of healthy fats with your meals or snacks throughout the day. And that could look like olive oil drizzled over your vegetables or in a dressing on your salad, but it might also look like a handful of almonds or walnuts, or it looks like half an avocado, or if you can tolerate eggs and you don't have a delayed food sensitivity to them, they are a good source of healthy fats as well. You want to drink 1/2 to 3/4 of your body weight in fluid ounces per day in the form of herbal teas or waters. Bone broth also counts towards that limit. And then, depending on how well you're actually managing your blood sugars, you can add in one of the next 3 steps. The first one, or you can add in more of those. If you're handling them really well, you could add them all. But if you're watching your blood sugars, you need to be careful. So start with 2 to 4 servings of low glycemic fruit in a day. And that would be your berries, your green apples, your cherries, your grapefruit. If you're still doing okay, you can add 3 servings per day of higher glycemic vegetables, things like your carrots, your winter squash, your peas, your beets. And then if you're still doing fine, you can add in up to 3 servings per day of your complex carbohydrates. And those would be things like your beans, your split peas, hummus, brown rice, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, sorghum, teff, gluten-free oats, those types of things. Now, the reason we say take it easy is because each person is an individual and their blood sugar responds in different and unique ways. When I was trying to get my blood sugar regulated, I had reactive hypoglycemia. There were foods that would trigger episodes of that and would make me horribly ill, very dizzy, sick to my stomach, anxious, clammy, really felt unwell. And a banana would trigger that. I knew nothing about balancing my blood sugar, but I would have a banana for snack with nothing else with it. And so it would drive my blood sugars way up and drop them way off. Or I'd get out of bed and I'd have a banana and I'd go for a walk. And the two things combined were terrible. I wouldn't even be able to make it around my walk to get home because I would just exhaust every part of my body. Sweet potatoes used to do the same thing. My blood sugar is much more stable, much more balanced now, and I can include some of those things. I just put half a banana in my smoothie this morning, and I'm absolutely fine. But I did it with fiber, did it with healthy fats, did it with protein. I ate some chicken as well this morning. So the last thing that we want you to know is that you need to aim for 8 to 12 grams of fiber per major meal. It's going to slow down the way that your body takes up sugar into your bloodstream, and it's going to help carry through toxins out of the body and keep your gut healthy and regulated as well, keep all the good bacteria where they need to be. So when you begin to balance your blood sugar, you also might find that you need to have a healthy snack in between meals. And if you do need to do that, that's okay. But make sure it's got protein first, fiber, and then possibly some healthy fats as well to keep you satiated and prevent those sugars from rising and falling. Protein and fiber are two of the very best things that you can focus on to help with blood sugar management. Every meal and snack that you eat should have both protein and fiber. So if you have an apple, have it with some nut butter or a handful of seeds. Kelly is a nut for apples. She is an absolute nut, and she's always eating them on our calls and chewing crunchy apples in my ears. Who do I ever think about chewing noises?
I try to not. Like, I try to chew it as quietly as I can, but apples are crunchy and delicious and good. Yes. But I actually like to slice my apples like discs and then put either tuna salad or salmon salad on it. And you get sweet and savory and crunchy at the same time. And it is loaded with protein, fiber, and fat. It's kind of like the perfect little treat.
Yes. So take a moment. Think about what you currently put on your plate or eat for snacks. And think about the steps that we just talked about, the proteins, the fiber, the healthy fats, the carbohydrates. Which one of those steps do you really need to focus on? If you want to, you can go ahead and put any of those responses in the chat.
All right. So it's true that sugar is incredibly damaging to our bodies, but it's also true that a life without sweet is not going to happen. And actually, it shouldn't happen. Your body needs sweet flavors to support organ systems. Traditional Chinese medicine tells us that organ systems like spleen, pancreas, stomach, pancreas, smooth muscle, lips, saliva, and skeletal muscle all come into balance with sweet flavors. Where we go wrong is in thinking that sugar is how we get sweet. Some foods are naturally sweet. We also have natural sweeteners that our body understands how to process and utilize. So let's talk about some of these better options. We have things like stevia, and some people say stevia, it's like tomato. What you need to know about stevia is that it does not affect your blood sugar. It's not going to cause it to spike or to rise. Monk fruit is another good option. It's not going to affect blood sugar, but you need to be careful with monk fruit, and you need to read the label, because products love to advertise that it's monk fruit because it's like the new hot health word. But when you turn it over and you look at the label, it's almost always cut with erythritol, which is an alcohol sugar, which we talked about. It kills your beneficial bacteria in your gut and causes all kinds of digestive havoc. So monk fruit has to be monk fruit as the only ingredient. Coconut sugar is another great option. It's still going to affect your blood sugar, but it's considered low glycemic index. So you can use this in moderation. And if you're using this with something that has protein and has fiber, it's really going to blunt the way it hits your blood, and it should be okay in moderation for you. Honey is another natural option. Studies actually show that initially honey is going to raise your blood sugar 30 minutes after consuming it, but then it later decreases your blood sugar and keeps it low for about 2 hours. The takeaway here is use honey sparingly, and small amounts can be therapeutic. Now, when you're looking at honey, raw, organic, unfiltered honey is the way to go. Local, if you can get it, is even better. A caveat to that would be Manuka honey, which is that New Zealand that comes from?
It's from the tea tree plants.
Yeah, it is like medicine, truly. It has a little bit of a different taste than honey, but truly it's like taking medicine for you.
I love it.
Oh, it's fantastic. When my kids are sick, we'll just take a spoon of it and just kind of slowly suck on it and get that goodness in us. The last option I want to talk about is maple syrup. It is lower than regular sugar on the glycemic index, but it's still going to raise your blood sugar, just slower than table sugar. Again, if you're doing something with maple syrup, make sure you've got protein or fiber with it to blunt the way it's going to hit your blood. Now, when I do my baked oatmeal casserole, I sweeten it with half honey, half maple syrup, depending on my mood. But I'm also adding things like flaxseed meal in there, protein powder in there. So it's not a refined processed baked good. It is a baked good that has sugar in it, but it also has a lot of protein and a lot of fiber. It's all about balance.
Yeah. And I just did the coconut sugar the other day in my dairy-free, gluten-free pumpkin pie, just as a trial run. And it came out absolutely delicious. The kids were singing its praises, said it tasted absolutely fantastic. And then I know I can't help myself, but you say tomato, I say no.
Tomato.
The other way around, right? I say tomato.
I say tomato.
Okay, all right.
Tomato is good.
Call the whole thing off. All right, let's go. So the next step that you need to take is to fix your sleep. And most Americans are getting less than 7 hours of sleep a night. The sweet spot for sleep is 7 to 8 hours. And if you're getting less than 7 hours a night of sleep, then you have an increased risk for high blood pressure, increased cortisol, which is your belly fat. I did that earlier, belly fat.
So it doesn't actually give you a flat belly. It gives you a fat belly. We talked about this last time. You want a flat belly, you need to sleep if you want a flat belly.
I know. It increases your insulin resistance. It increases your risk of cardiovascular disease. And on average, if you don't sleep well, you will overeat by about 900 calories the next day, just because you're trying to stimulate yourself to stay awake.
This is me. That's like a huge struggle for me. If I have a night where I, for whatever reason, don't sleep well, even though I'm reaching for healthy options, I am still eating and I'm not hungry just to stimulate myself. And the takeaway is, even if you're grabbing healthy things, when you're over consuming more calories than what your body actually needs, you're creating inflammation in your body.
Right. And that's, one of the points, that we create this systemic inflammation in our bodies when we're not sleeping enough. And we also know that when we don't sleep, it decreases our T cells, which is a form of immune cell, long-term immunity inside the body, by 70%. When you combine that then with eating sugars, which also decreases your immune system, you're setting yourself up for being prone to every infection known to man that's coming through the environment that you're in, wherever you may be. So just take a moment and think about the quality of your sleep and the quantity of your sleep. Do you think that sleep is working for you or against you? You can go ahead and put any of your responses or observations in the chat.
All right, now we are going to touch on fixing your gut. This is something really near and dear to myself and to Jane. This is both a big part of our healing journey, and really anybody that has chronic symptoms or dysfunction or disease, this is a part of your journey. We help people with this every day. If your gut is unhealthy, your blood sugar handling is likely also unhealthy. They go hand in hand. So let's break this down a little bit so you get a better picture of what we're talking about. Leaky gut is directly tied to blood sugar dysregulation. Gut dysbiosis drives cravings, which compound blood sugar imbalances. Toxic gut bacteria imbalances drive up blood sugar imbalances, and they drive obesity. Blood sugar dysregulation is connected to digestive issues and vice versa. So what do we do when we're talking about fixing the gut? We're talking about 4 R's. Now, the 4 R's are remove, replace, restore, and repair. So let's expand on those just a little bit. When we talk about remove, we're talking about all inflammatory foods that can contribute to leaky gut. things like gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and eggs. You'll also need to ditch toxic foods like sugar, caffeine, and alcohol while you're healing. Now, I want to point out that the list that I just shared is just some of the common ones we see, but hear me say that your inflammatory foods are specific to your gut and your body. This is why Jane and I are huge advocates of doing proper testing. We offer a delayed food sensitivity test that looks at 190 foods. The next R is replace. We want to replace the bad with the good. And we're talking about nutrients. So we do this typically through targeted foods and nutrients in the foods, and as in addition to that, targeted supplements, because in truth, we've compromised our food to the point that you really can't eat the volumes you need of certain nutrients to get into therapeutic range where healing is actually possible. The next R is, well, it's restore, but sometimes you'll see it re-inoculate. It depends where you're looking. What we're talking about is restoring the beneficial bacteria that's in your gut with a high quality, high potency probiotic to reestablish that healthy gut microbiome, depending on what's going on in your body. There is no one size fits all probiotics, so we really need to pick the one that fits what's happening with you. The wrong probiotic, and Jane can speak to this, can actually make everything worse in your body.
Mm-hmm.
The last R is repair. We want to provide your gut with the essential nutrients it needs to repair itself. Again, this is through both diet and targeted supplements. Now, I want to point out that just removing the inflammatory foods is never enough. I always compare it to the example of a forest fire. Say you're right where a forest is burning and you're throwing sticks on it. That's you eating inflammatory foods. You stop throwing sticks on the fire. Well, now you've removed the fuel source, but where that fire happened, that forest is still damaged. Just because you take the inflammatory foods out of your diet does not mean your gut's going to heal. You have to intentionally give your gut the nutrients it needs to repair that mucosal lining, or your leaky gut is not going to improve and get better. So I want you to take a moment and think about what simple shifts you can make with your gut. Also, I want you to think about what your biggest takeaway personally is from today. So go ahead and share your thoughts and observations in the chat if you would like.
So navigating all of this can be challenging, and especially if you're not sure how to eat for your body and what foods work for your body. If you're living with blood sugar regulation issues like diabetes, pre-diabetes, or reactive hypoglycemia, which was what I struggled with, and actually, by the way, 100% of people dealing with addiction tend to deal with, or you know that your energy spirals and crashes when you eat sugar, then maybe it's time to get to the root cause of it.
Yep. And it may seem impossible to you right now to get a handle on healthy blood sugar balancing, but it isn't. We walk you through this step by step so you don't have to worry about failing or messing up or doing it wrong. But we aren't right for everyone. So we like to sit down and have a conversation about what's going on with your health and your struggles to see if we're the right fit and if it makes sense to work together. We can help you start living abundantly instead of just surviving. If you're navigating this on your own and you want support, we are here to help.
So let's go ahead and have some question and answer time. You feel free to unmute yourself, anybody that's in the chat right now, in the participation or online. You can write comments in this live video feed right down below us, and we'd be happy to answer them. Do any of you have any questions from the things that we've discussed today?
No questions here, but a lot of encouragement to work on the protein intake in my diet. And as I mentioned prior to the webinar, I have a penchant for chocolate. Since a year and a half ago, I got that COVID thing. I'm not sure what that's all about. I think it's just self-control. Just use it as a treat. And of course, I say good chocolate, but I think it's also processed. I need to watch that too. And I'm a part of a raw foods potluck. We just had our 271st raw food potluck last month. And I do eat some fish, with scales. So your suggestions for the fish, I don't eat bottom fish like the shrimp, etc., but I can get enough protein with the rest of it. No meat, but I can slowly intake that, and also seeing I'm allergic to chicken and poultry, anything with feathers on it. So I can hold the chicken because I know they're safe with me. So I just avoid it. I don't really feel a need to take any kind of injections so I can eat a certain food. I'll just avoid them.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's been very encouraging. Thank you both so very much.
in our group, Annie, I put a couple of posts recently on plant-based protein sources and how much protein you actually need. And part of that is a formula based on your weight. So you can figure out, now this is if you are a healthy kidney person. When you have kidney impairment, it's a little bit different. But go ahead and look for those resources in the tribe so you can see really what your goals should be. Most women, especially through midlife and perimenopause and menopause, we grossly undereat protein and fiber. And to speak to your cravings for chocolate since having COVID, whether it's COVID or any kind of bacterial exposure or any virus exposure, it can shift your gut microbiome, and that can create imbalances that cause you to start craving things like that. So it might not just be a reward thing. It might not just be a random craving. It might just be a little bit of dysbiosis or imbalance in your gut as well.
And I would speak to chocolate. To me, like, honestly, don't know where I would be. I have chocolate every single day because I love chocolate. I grew up across the street from Cadbury's chocolate factory, and I'm pretty sure it runs through my veins. So I just need to keep my sauce going, right? But I try to make really smart choices, and I do it in one of two ways. One is, I know that we talk about having 8 to 16 grams of added sugars in a day. So if I'm going to indulge in a real chocolate bar, then I make sure that I'm not going over the amount of added sugars per day. Kind of use it like a budget. Like, I've got this amount in my wallet, and this is how much I'm allowed to spend, and this is where I choose to spend it today. Those are my treats and my and there are days when we just blow it because it's a holiday or whatever. But for the most part, I just daily try and stick to that. The other thing that I've done is found Choc Zero. Now they do have some corn in there, which is not ideal. There's like no perfect chocolate fix, but Choc Zero is only sweetened with stevia. So they're a halfway decent brand. You just need to be careful because some of their recipes have milk in them, not all of them. So their dark chocolate ones are usually safe, but I got dinged with their hazelnut one a little while ago. It tasted like Ferrero Rocher. It was so good. And then couldn't understand why it was so stuffy, and read the label and it had milk in it, and I was so gutted. And then the other one that I do is Chocolove. The XO sugar-free bars, they have dark chocolate, and they are really pretty decent. And I just have 1 or 2 squares in a day. And that just kind of keeps that craving at bay. But there's often other reasons too, because I deal with the mental health side of things. That tells me often that folks' energy is not exactly where it needs to be. They're looking for the pick-me-up, their drive or their focus is struggling, or they may be lacking iron. Chocolate is really quite high in iron, and so we tend to lean into it when we're lacking some of those minerals. So there can be other reasons behind that craving besides just dysbiosis or shifts and changes. So there could be a little piece to that puzzle in there somewhere.
Yeah, would rather than
smarter too, right? Like we talked about, pair it with fiber and protein. So like I eat chocolate regularly, not every day, but I eat it regularly. I just did the fridge video, and I had 2 bags of chocolate chips in my fridge because chocolate chips, people. Like I'm unapologetic for that, but it is allergy friendly and it's dark chocolate, and I have it with nut butter. So I'm getting protein and fiber with it. Or if I just want like a handful of chocolate chips, I will make sure that I have protein before I have that snack.
Oh yeah.
I just go straight to the chocolate. I'm just setting myself up to feel like crap. And I've worked too hard on my health to just make simple mistakes that are easily preventable. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I don't want to go by feeling. So having the testing for the iron, et cetera, so you're not just throwing, darts on a board,
Mhm.
I want to know
Yeah, we would,
specifically.
yeah, we would
Yeah.
never supplement someone with iron without
No.
looking at a
Right.
lab. See, you always want to see where your body's baseline is. We
Mhm.
always talk about don't guess when you can know. When you're just guessing, you can cause more problems than you're
Mhm.
starting with.
And even, I think raisins have iron in them.
Yes, they do.
So I just grab a handful of raisins, good raisins, and just nosh on those. And yeah, so
Yeah.
it's replaced.
And
Good.
that's again one of those areas where I would exercise caution, because raisins are dried fruits. It means that the sugars are highly concentrated
Oh, yeah.
inside there. And while they still have good fiber, I've got one guy that I have talked to on I don't know how many occasions, and like raisins are his go-to. His mom, he was anemic as a little boy. His mom told him raisins have iron in them. They're a great source of iron, and he's eaten raisins for his entire life for that reason. But do it as like ants on a log, or, where you've got the celery and you've got the peanut butter and then you've got the raisins as well, because then you've got something to kind of blunt that blood sugar uptake as well.
Ants on a log. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Good visual. Thank
All
you.
right. Any other questions, or does anyone have any observations that they want to share? Okay. Well, if there is no other questions, then we can go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank everybody again for joining us and talking about blood sugar today. If you have any questions or comments that come up for you after we end, go ahead and put them in the comments or the chat as they come up for you. Like I said earlier at the beginning, we'll be going through and responding to any comments that you guys put out there, any questions you put out there. Same thing for if you're watching this recorded and not live, put your questions or comments in the chat or the comment section down below, and we'll be sure to get back and answer all of them as well. Now, if you want to have a conversation about your personal health concerns and struggles, please reach out to us. If you are needing support and structure and you're interested in working with us to help you get where you want to be with your health, reach out to us. We are here to support you so you can succeed and heal. We can help you start living abundantly instead of just surviving. Thank you so much again for joining us, and have a great day, everybody.
You too. God bless you.
And I just wanted to throw out, we keep talking about put the comments in the chat. That would be in our Facebook Live on our Abundant Life Nutrition and Wellness Center tribe. So if you're watching this recorded online somewhere else and you're not a part of this tribe yet, get yourself on Facebook, get yourself as part of that group. We talk about recipes all the time, tips and tricks for living every day with delayed food sensitivities, and making practical use of the foods inside our kitchens, and just have an incredible, Kelly's doing an incredible job of running that group and making sure that you guys have great content. So sign up and join us on there if you're on Facebook, because you'll get all kinds of curated content that is just for you, and it's absolutely free.
Yeah, you can't beat free, especially when it's right information, because there's so much conflicting information out there.
Yes. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.